Going for two, kickers are extra, I give them the boot. Ooh, going for two, sit back, relax while I grab me a brew. Ooh, now I'm reclining while putting my time and I'm ready to go. My spine is aligning and much my lineups, my bank account grow. I am so rich, but knowledge is all that I'm leaving it with. Ooh, listen to this, multiple options, how far can I get? Ooh, DFS Dynasty redraft tonight, I'm not finishing last. I'm finishing past any and all, I am looking to last. What else? This spot is popping and I am so locked in and only opening the door when it is opportunity knocking. And all of these spots keep on talking and talking. So what are we talking? What kind of alignment? And running it deep, even players forgotten or came from the bottom or hitting that top. And this spot is popping, yeah, this spot is popping. And woo! This is the armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo!
What is going on, guys, and welcome to episode 292 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Jeff Lambert. Follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. We are live here on the Going for Two Live podcast network every Wednesday and Friday night on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. Syndicated in all major podcast networks. If you are on Twitter, read the little scroller down the bottom there. We cannot see your comments in the chat roll, so go find us on YouTube at youtube.com/going-for-two-live. That way you can comment on the show, ask us some questions if you need to. Let me introduce my two co-hosts. First up, we got Mr. Tim Strobel. You can follow him on Twitter at Keto DFS. What's up, Tim?
Oh, man. Ready for another week. Looking forward to week 9 here. Ready to break it down with you, fellas.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Also joining us here, he came in like Michael Jordan. It was a countdown. It was like 5, 4, 3, and then Gerson shows up right before we go hit the live button there. So what's up, Gerson?
Not much, man. Just had a long week of work, and I'm ready to just talk football, man. Now it's just like get ready for football, and that's what I love.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is I almost forgot about the show tonight. I get home from work. Since it's a long ass day at work, I get home. I'm eating my cereal. I'm thinking it's Saturday. It feels like a Saturday for some reason for me. I'm eating my cereal and I'm like, oh shit, it's 11:15. I got a show in like 15 minutes. So I rushed my ass downstairs real quick, got the studio set up. But yeah, that's kind of how my day's been going so far.
Yeah, the hour late show kind of messed me up too. I was starting to like settle in and I was like, oh shit, we got the show in 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of threw us off. This hopefully will be our last late show of the year. My day job changes their hours tomorrow. We start closing at 9 instead of 10. So I'll be getting off a little earlier on Friday. So no more 11:30 shows. All right, fellas, let's get into the weekly rewind.
The weekly rewind. Rewind.
All right, one good, one bad. Gerson, what you got?
Yeah, my one good was obviously King Henry. I pounded the table for him everywhere. I'm glad I convinced him to get on him. It was just too easy. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw there was like, what is it called? Behind the scene, NFL.com, or with the NFL pass, whatever they call it. Mike Vrabel said, this is very simple. What we're going to do, here's the game plan. We give the ball to Derrick Henry.
Yes, yeah, Derrick Henry definitely was a beast as usual. What was your
my
bad?
My bad was Van Jefferson. I didn't count Van Jefferson all the way until Sunday morning, though. And I'm still I was on the Sunday show, so I have to, that's my bad, so if you showed up on Sunday, I'm really sorry. I was high on him, but I don't know what the fuck he was doing, running wind sprint out there. But yeah, I was pissed off. I was watching the red zone. I was just watching the Ram game. I'm like, where is he? And apparently he didn't even show up.
Yeah, so much for playing like what they said he didn't play like his full complement of snaps. He ended up playing like not even half that. So yeah, definitely a miss there. What about you, Tim? One good, one bad. What you got?
Yeah, good for me was DeAndre Hopkins, right? He was my guy all week. He was my lock of the week. Playing our guys last week worked out well. One guy that did not work out well for me was Chris Olave. A lot of people moved to Kamara by Sunday. I stayed with Olave, and that did not work out for me. So thankfully, everybody else hit, so I still cashed.
Yeah, my one good was Tyreek Hill. He was also my lock. So our goods were all our locks of the week.
Tyreek Hill with one good.
Yeah, we crushed the block. My bad, unfortunately, was Wan'Dale Robinson. I thought I would get cute, and I put him in my cash lineup, and he got me a whopping 3.8 points, which basically killed my cash lineup. Luckily, I had Tua and I had Tyreek Hill and a few other good calls that kind of saved me in my cash lineup. But yeah, Wando Robinson almost ruined my entire day. All right, let's get into the quarterbacks.
Let's talk quarterbacks.
All right, Gerson, you only have one guy in your elite tier there, so we'll let you talk about the man there.
Yeah, man, the man, Josh Allen, the stallion, right? Averaging 30.1 points per game for DraftKings. In 10 career games as a favorite of 10 plus, which is what Vegas 10 plus over, his favorite. He's averaging 24.9 DraftKings points per game, but he's only exceeded 30 points in 2 of those games. So, I mean, well, that's kind of a downer. It really is not. I mean, if you can get 25 points out of a quarterback, it's pretty nice. But he is expensive. He is 8.5K, but he's the only quarterback that I think has the floor of 25 points, right? So it's kind of crazy to say a floor of 25 points, but that's what he's playing. He's playing like MVP level. Give me Josh Allen at his price. I'm going to stack him with Gabe Davis and Diggs, and then I'll figure out the rest because it's expensive, just like last week of the what's called a Dolphin stack.
Yeah, yep. Agreed. Yeah, it's crazy,
Yeah,
right?
I love Allen this week.
Yeah, watching the game last week, and,
Right.
and sorry, Tim, I gotta bashing your team just
Right.
a little bit, but they just made it look so easy. It was just like I was like
Yeah.
they're out there like playing street ball. It was just so easy for Josh Allen. The way that he reads the defenses, it's quite amazing. And 8.5, he's definitely worth paying up for. Tim, you got one guy there that neither. Gerson's got him in his mid tier, but go ahead and talk about Kyler Murray.
Yeah, this is a shout out to the Yeti Express, Jared. I said it's Kyler Murray week all week, and the more I look into it, man, I think it's a great play. And on the surface, you're thinking, oh, last time these two teams played, it was 19-9. But I think both of these teams have gotten better since then, and I think this one's much more likely to be a shootout. So I think some people are going to be a little scared off of it. Spoiler alert: I'm going back to Hopkins again this week, so of course I'm going to be running his quarterback with him, Mr. Kyler Murray.
Yeah, definitely like Kyler Murray this week as well. So the other elite guy that I have in the elite tier is, of course, Justin Herbert going up against Atlanta, 7.2. Atlanta, I think, is 30th DVOA versus the pass. We've seen, everyone pretty much is litting up the Atlanta Falcons, and Herbert will be no different. Now he's without his top two weapons, no Mike Williams, no Keenan Allen. So it'll have to be a very interesting stack. Obviously, Eckler will still be there, so you have him as a stacking option. But you got some receivers that are going to be some value that we'll get to a little bit later. But Herbert versus Atlanta, to me, is pretty much a slam dunk if you want to pay 7.2. He's cheaper than the guys we just talked about. $200 cheaper than Murray, and obviously almost $1,300 cheaper than Allen. I think he has a similar ceiling to Allen. Not quite the same floor, but similar ceiling. All right, let's move down into the mid-tier, Tim. What you got for your mid-tier?
So I told you guys, nothing pains me more than having to tout Vikings. Well, it may be this week having to tout the Packers because they're playing the Detroit Lions, and I just want to play every Packer. And I'm going to start with Mr. Aaron Rodgers, 12 himself. 5,900, I think he's too cheap this week. He basically has everybody back. I mean, Randall Cobb, okay, he's not going to play, but like Al Lazard should play. Dobbs is going to play. Tunyon's going to play. Like, I think he's got his full complement. And I had this stat in full games he's played against the Detroit Lions last 4. He's averaged 25 plus DraftKings points. So, I mean, he gives you a good floor, even though they've been throwing it a little bit less. I think they're going to throw it all over Detroit this week. If you guys are in the round table, you see a chart that I have. Detroit's defense is so bad, they had to have their own quadrant. Like, even the bad teams are better than how bad they are. They're easily the worst defense in the league, giving up over 420 yards a game. So just lock in your Packers this week.
Yeah. All right, Gerson, what you got in your mid-tier?
So I want to comment on this Green Bay game. I'm not on it, man. I'm out on Green Bay. Like, the thing is, Green Bay, they're going to run the ball in this game. That's how they're going to win this game. They want to get this win, and that's it. They don't really – it's not a game about getting Aaron Rodgers going. They've already tried that, but in the game they won, they ran the ball. And obviously, Detroit Lions are a terrible defense, even through the pass or through the run, both ways. But the thing is, I know, I understand he scored 25 points per game, but he had Devontae Adams. He doesn't have Devontae Adams no more. He has injury-prone Christian Watson. He has Alan Lazard. He's always.
I honestly don't think it matters. Not against the Detroit Lions. They play so much man defense that he's just going to look up, find the best matchup every time, and go to that guy. Right? Like, this isn't – I think they run the ball, but I think they dominate it. They're going to score 30-plus points in this game. They can't all come on the ground.
Yeah, well,
and he's 5,900.
Yeah, well, 5,900 is a great price. But the thing I'm looking at is ownership. It's 11%. I'd rather have the field take that 11%, and if it doesn't hit, then I'm going leverage play. I'm going the opposite. But hey, I'm not perfect, so don't. Tim's probably right.
Yeah.
The chat is agreeing with Tim. Look at that.
Scott is saying, "Boo this man." Jason's saying, "Boo Gerson."
Anyway, so my mid-tier before my rant on Green Bay. Sorry. So we mentioned Kyler Murray already. You want me to talk about Kyler Murray?
Yeah, talk about.
I did. Go ahead.
Let me talk about. Yeah, you talk about.
Yeah, talk about your boy Tua.
Yeah. Dude, I feel like I'm the Tua biggest fan because every single time he comes on the slate, I talk about him and he smashes, and for a good reason. Tua ranked first when he finished an entire game. Okay, guys, first in passer rating, QBR, yard per attempt, expected play, EPA. What does EPA mean again, Jeff? I forgot.
Expected points added.
Yeah.
Expected points. Yep.
Yeah. This matchup, it looked bad, right? Like, it looked difficult, but since week 4, the Bears are 24th in schedule adjusted fantasy points to quarterback. Dak Prescott just put up 26 points on them about a week ago. In four healthy starts, Tua has averaged 24.7 points per game, 345 yards per game. That's first overall, and the 24.7 is third overall. And he's basically always going to be a high-end quarterback, top 5 quarterback. The weapons he has is totally unfair. Everybody saw it last week. There was no way you picked your poison. Well, guess what? Waddle's going to get touchdown. So yeah. I'm going to be very, very high on Tua. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have only 2 quarterbacks this week, and it's the 2 quarterbacks I talked about already.
Yeah, it's funny because I gave that stat last week, right, with the 10 catches, 150 yards, and how Tyreek Hill was the leader in Dolphins history. Well, guess what? He just added to that because he did it again last week. He had 12 catches and 188 yards. So he's still the leader in that guard. So yeah, I mean, Tua Tagovailoa got some weapons there for sure. Tim, you got one more guy in your mid tier, then I'll talk about the 2 that I have.
Yeah, so this is a little bit stats and a little bit narrative. Kirk Cousins playing against the Washington Commanders. I've played Vikings almost every week. Their stacks have paid off for me every week that I've played them. They're terrible against wide receivers, and he's got great stacking options. And really, I think he just wants to beat down on the Commanders. I think that they could easily score 30-plus in this game. They're projected for 23, but I think it's going to go over that total, and Kirk Cousins is going to make sure they win this game. So I think that this is just a good spot for him. I think he'll be a little bit lower owned. But I love – we'll talk about it when we get the wide receivers. But I love Justin Jefferson this week. And so I'm going to have a lot of Cousins stacks.
The only thing I will say, and I'm not going to poo-poo your call because I like Cousins as well, is the Washington Commanders, the whole Washington area right now is so excited about this whole Dan Snyder thing, selling the team. Like, you have no idea. That's all the radio's talking about. They are so hyped about it. I mean, I've never seen anybody so hyped about an owner possibly going to be out of the team. They hate Snyder here, so they'll be playing inspired football just based on that. The crowd will be pretty crazy into it as well. But I do think Cousins is still a great play. 6.2, you mentioned his stacking options are great, so I still like that play.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is keep an eye on weather Sunday morning. We don't have too many weather games, but this could be one of them.
Yeah.
I got 2 guys I want to mention. One of them is Joe Burrow against the Carolina Panthers at 6.6. Panthers, I think, are 30th or they're 28th, I think, DVOA versus the pass. Obviously, we've seen in the past what Burrow can do. He had a bit of a down game last week, but 2 weeks ago he blew up. I could see something similar happening again this time. He's at home this time against Carolina. 6.6 is just too cheap for Burrow, I think. And then the other guy I have is tournament option only. Going to the opposite side of that Packers game with Jared Goff, home Goff as I call him. He always seems to play much better at home. I think I gave a stat a couple weeks ago that he's averaging, I think, 26 fantasy points per game at home at 5.5. The Packers got a good defense, but I do think that the Lions will have to, keep up with the Packers scoring. So they're going to have to pass the ball a ton. So Goff at 5.5 is my tournament play. Pivot off some of the guys we already mentioned. All right, let's move down into the value tier, and I'll go to you first, Gerson, for your value.
Well, I only have one, and like I just said, I'm basically going to play two quarterbacks this week. It's going to be Josh Allen and Tua, but I love the Kyler Murray call, but Geno Smith is my value quarterback if I would have played one. Geno is third highest in PFF passer grade at 84.8. Third highest in passer rating at 107. I can't believe 107.2. I can't believe that. That's incredible for a guy that's been in the league for 10 years and been a backup. And then fifth highest EPA per play at 0.08. He's just cheap. He's still cheap, And we saw last week that apparently DK Metcalf needs to take a crap and he needs to get carried out in a cart. But when he freaking tears his patella or whatever it was on his knee, he can come back and play great. I'm like, okay, so you can take a crap, but it's just funny. Like, he's underpriced, and he's gonna keep being underpriced. But you don't want to play him because he's Geno Smith, right? But he keeps performing. So, I mean, if you want to get cheaper with him, I mean, there's another cheap value quarterback, but I just rather just play Josh Allen or Tua.
Yeah, I like
so
that.
I actually have a good lead in here. One of the stats I had in on the roundtable chat was EPA per dropback, right? Number 1 is Patrick Mahomes, 2 is Josh Allen, 3 is Tua, 4 is Jalen Hurts, 5 Geno Smith, 6 is my value quarterback this week, Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence did not look good last week, but he was also playing against Denver, and we know their defense is actually pretty good. But the Raiders are really, really bad. Sorry there, Gerson. But they have allowed every quarterback to score at least 17 points this season. So at 5,200, that gives you a great floor. I think he is. I'm probably going to pay up to Aaron Rodgers, but I actually think that Trevor Lawrence or the other guy we could talk about are viable cash game plays. But I don't think I'm going to pay all the way down. But I do think he has some very cheap stacking options that we'll get to later that allow you to build some cheap stacks and then fill in some of the high price guys we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I like that call. I looked at him as well at that 5.2 with a pretty good price tag. So I got Justin Fields going up against Miami, and I have some stats. I actually wrote them up in my Fantasy Pros article. So the last 2 games, he's got at least 24 DK points in both those games. One was against the 6th-ranked DVOA defense in the Patriots. The other one was against the number 1 ranked DVOA defense in the Dallas Cowboys. This week, he gets the 25th ranked DVOA defense in Miami. So if he's putting up 24 points against those 2 other defenses, he could definitely do it against Miami. Obviously, he's doing it with his legs, but he has been passing a little bit more as well lately. And I think Fields at 5.3 is going to be a pretty chalky quarterback, but I do still like him. And really surprisingly, he's been, if you play fantasy, he's been a QB1 over the last 3 or 4 weeks now. He's been putting some good numbers up. So Justin Fields is my value quarterback there.
He's quarterback 8 right now in fantasy. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. I'm like,
it's
what?
crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
I want to add something to that game, though. I forgot to mention it earlier on. Look out for the weather. Wind might be an issue. I don't flip that wind until it gets to gushing of 21 to 20 miles per hour. That's when I worry, because that's when the football actually can be very inaccurate, I mean, Tim and I don't know. I would assume Jeff played football. I mean, they might have had those helmets, like the one that years. But
we didn't have helmets in my day. We were
Joe Lombardi with
helmets.
Yeah,
Joe Lombardi was your coach, right? I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
but look out for the win.
Yep, and then there's one last one that I had. It's kind of a poor man's Justin Fields. Is Marcus Mariota also gets a lot of points with his legs as well. The defense for the Chargers is good against the pass, but not so good against the run, especially running quarterbacks. So Marcus Mariota has done pretty well over the last couple of games. And believe it or not, the Falcons are the 9th best efficient team in the red zone as far as scoring points. which was surprising to me. But they run the ball a ton, and Mariota is the one. And he actually last week had a really good passing game as well, which made him even look even better. But at 5.3, he's a good pivot off of the chalky or Justin Fields if you want to go that route. All right, let's get to the tight ends.
Did somebody say tight ends?
All right, Tim, let's go to you first here. What you got for your elite tight ends?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird week, right? Because you don't have Kelsey or Andrews on the slate. Like your elite guys are, high 4Ks, or the guy I'm going to talk about here, which is Zach Ertz, right, at 5.1. I don't know that I'll have a lot of exposure to him outside of my Kyler stacks, but Seattle is the worst team in the league against tight ends. And in the last game, I think he scored 17 points and didn't even have a touchdown. Like, it's just free across the middle against Seattle as a tight end. If you can pay up for Ertz to get different, I think he gives you great leverage in tournaments, because I don't think a lot of people will be paying up a tight end this week. I've already talked that I like that game. I like Kyler Murray. Sneak preview for my stack later.
Good stuff. Gerson, who you got?
Ooh, that reminds me, I got to do my stack. My tight end is Kyle Pitts, man. I just can't quit him. It's like that ex-girlfriend that you can't quit because sex was so good, and you're like, oh man, whatever. Our relationship is toxic, but the magic is good, But that's like Kyle Pitts. Like, oh man, he has great talent, but he sucks. But coming off a 9-target game a week ago, I mean, that's pretty good. But now he faces the Chargers. They rank 23rd in DVOA against tight end. They also allow the 6th most yards versus the tight end position. So I'm going to – that crazy as it sounds, this game is being talked about a lot on a lot of podcasts. It's not like no one's talking about it. I heard this game talked about so many times. I'm like, okay, all right. I don't know. I'm kind of confused. Like, I want to play it, but then I'm like, there's the Bills and there's the Dolphins,
Yeah.
Like, what's the ceiling compared to the ceiling of that game, But I like Kyle Pitts. He's underpriced. 4.1?
4.5.
4.5. So yeah, give me Kyle Pitts. And again, like I said, I don't know who I am, so I don't know about Kyle Pitts. We'll see.
So the only other guy that I have in the elites here is Gerald Everett, obviously for the Chargers. I mentioned earlier that there's no Mike Williams, no Keenan Allen. So they got guys like Josh Palmer and DeAndre Carter are going to be out there. So Everett will be a good safety blanket for Herbert, obviously with Eckler as well. 4.8 is kind of pricey, on this slate for tight ends. I think we're probably going to be living in the mid tier for the tight ends this week. But if you're paying up that high, 4.8 is a pretty decent price for Everett going up against Atlanta and an offense that, is going to be limited with the amount of good players it's got on the field. No Keenan and no Mike Williams.
Sure.
All right, Tim, let's move down into the mid tier.
Yeah, this is probably, we'll talk about another one later, but this is probably my favorite Packer play on the slate that's not named Aaron Rodgers is Big Bobby Tunyon at 3,800. Even with Allen Lazard coming back, we've seen since Randall Cobb has come out, he's gotten a lot of those kind of traditional slot over the middle passes. And he's got consistent target volume over the last few weeks. And of course, he's playing the Detroit Lions this week, which are bottom 5 against the tight end. And as I just mentioned, give up the most yards per game in the league. So he had 6 targets, 4 targets. A couple weeks ago, he had 12 targets. So he provides a ceiling, and he's only 3,800. So if you're only going to play one Packer, I would say it should be Tunyon.
Yeah, I think I saw on Roto Grinders too that currently, at least, they haven't upgraded their projections in a while, but currently he's the highest owned tight end on the slate at 3,800. So I don't know what Gerson has with his, but I know that's where Roto Grinders has Tunyon.
Yeah, he's number 1. I have him at 14.2%. I need to mention more about ownership. 14.2%.
Yeah.
Deal. All right, Gerson, what you got for your mid tier?
Yeah, like Tim said, tight end is very, very ugly this week. Speaking of ugly, it's Tyler Higbee, man. I've been playing this guy the last couple of weeks, and he's just been like, yeah, well, you're not getting anything. So, Higbee ranked 3rd in target per game at 7.3. 4th in expected fantasy points per game at 12.1. But he hasn't produced, right? So, like, what have you done for me lately? I don't care. But what I do care about, DraftKings dropped his price so low at 3,700. That's the lowest he's been all season. So sign me up for that. And I mean, the lowest he's been since week 17 last in 2020. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to take Higbee with Cooper Cup. I don't think he's hurt. He's just the craziest white boy you'll see that ever play the field in the NFL. I mean, I think he's going to go out there. If he is hurt, then Higbee will get the targets, But I also think Tampa Bay will put a lot of pass rush on Matthew Stafford. So he's going to use Higbee as his safety blanket along with Cooper Cup.
All right. I like it. So my mid-tier guy, both Gerson and Tim have him as a value because I had a value that's like way down into the min price. So this guy actually made it to the mid-tier for me. But Mr. Evan Ingram, he's kind of had a career revival here with Jacksonville. Over the last 4 weeks, he's got at least 6 targets in every game. He's had 5 catches, 4 catches, 4 catches. Had his first touchdown last week in week 8. So I do think Evan Ingram, with the volume that he's getting in that offense, is definitely viable at 3,300. He's not putting up monsters like he was in his rookie season that we were all hoping for, but I do think that with the volume he's getting, he's still pretty viable and going up against, we mentioned before, the Raiders defense, which is not very good. So Evan Ingram, and a good stacking option if you wanted to go with Lawrence as well, like Tim mentioned in the quarterback segment.
Yeah, he's just too cheap. Great cash option.
Agreed. Let's see. We talked about Higbee. Oh, you got Hayden Hurst there, Gerson. Talk about him really quick.
I don't have too much to say about him other than Chase is out basically, and like we saw last week, he wasn't. Burrow didn't look great, right? The whole team didn't look great, but I think this would be a good chance to get him at 3,600. He's owned only 7%, and he's getting targets. So four target, 8 targets, and he's gotten 7 targets 3 more times during the season. You just need 1 touchdown from him, and you'll be hitting value. But I think it's more Carolina Panthers are an underrated defense, I like to say. And I think they'll put pressure on Burrow, and Burrow will have to pepper Hayden Hurst for 3,600. And it's just more of a GPP play, though. Don't play him in cash game for sure.
Yeah, and then the one more I had, I just mentioned real quick, K. Dotton. With Cameron Bray already been ruled out against the Rams at 3.1. He's gotten a ton of targets whenever he's been the main tight end there. He's not done a whole lot with it. He just had the volume and the catches, but the PPR nature of DraftKings gives you a decent floor with that guy. So K. Dotton at 3.1. Moving down into the value tier, Tim, you got one there that I like a lot as well.
Yeah, Tyler Conklin, aka Gronklin. The only reason I put him here, 2 things. 1, he was in the Millie Maker lineup last week. 2, he has to play against Buffalo, so we know this is going to be a pass-heavy game script, and you can actually score on Buffalo with the tight end. But 3, I built a lineup I absolutely loved, and I was 100 extra with Evan Ingram, and I pivoted down to him, and I was like, I could see it. And so I think it's one of those things where I think Ingram will be more popular at the same price, and I think he has just as much a likely as end up being the best play at that price.
I like.
So I just imagine Tim looking at his phone, being like, "Yeah, I can see it."
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the guy last week who thought I could see Garrett Wilson and Tyler Conklin in this lineup together without Zach Wilson in the Millie Maker won all the money. So
yeah,
I don't know if y'all saw the winning Millie Maker lineup, but there was like 0 correlation. It was really bad.
So there was a comment early on that said that the chalk had hit at a nut rate. I like to read an article on 4for4.com. It is premium, but they review the lineup. Dude, chalk has hit the last 3 weeks basically.
Yep.
And it usually when I do my 150 build, I usually like to keep my ownership under 125%. I don't want to be too chalky, but I'm starting to wonder if this is just a thing. But they've also only had 1 lineup the last 3 weeks, I believe. So you can be watching that commercial on DraftKings. Yeah, play Jonathan Taylor.
No, I don't know if you saw last week, the dude who won like the 20 max tournaments had the same basic lineup. It was first, second, and third. The only thing that was different was the defense.
Oh yeah,
so he stripped the 100K, the 50K, and the 25K. So
yeah,
it can be done for sure.
Good stuff. All right, I just had the one last, the super punt tight end, Brock Wright. Obviously, the Lions traded away T.J. Hawkinson to the Vikings, so Brock Wright is the expected tight end to take over. He's 2.5. I'm not super excited about him, but at 2.5, he doesn't got to do a whole lot. So Brock Wright is kind of the punt tight end there if you want to go down super, super cheap.
There's a
All right.
comment. There's a comment that Scott's asking, do you think the shark's hitting so often because the industry is getting sharper? Yes, but not only that, the industry is also giving a lot of free content now. Everything's free. You almost don't have to pay for anything. This show cost you 1 hour and 15 minutes of your life. It's free, you know? That's how it just, I think 5 to 6 years ago, this show didn't even, actually, we did exist 5 years ago, huh?
Yeah, 6 years ago
Well,
we did. 5 years ago we had this show.
I think there's another reason, and I've heard this talked a little bit about as well, is the pricing this year is a little bit off, particularly for running backs. The running backs that are priced around 6,000, 7,000 this year would have been 8,000, 8,500 in previous seasons. So I think that even though the pricing is still really tight on running back, wide receiver, I think they give you a little bit more cushion. Like, for example, Alvin Kamara last week at 7,100. In a previous season, he would have been 8,500 all day. So I think that allowing you to fit in these more optimum lineups has led to the higher projected builds working their way into the optimals.
Yeah, that's a good point, because not only was it, those guys you're mentioning being higher priced, but the elite guys, we had the Christian McCaffreys in the 10K, 10.2 range. We haven't seen that, I don't think, at all this year. I think the highest guys have been sort of the 8, 9, 8. I think we had one that was 9,000. So prices are down a little bit on the elite side, but then it kind of conjuncts everything else in the middle. All right, our sponsor, No House Advantage, is changing the game. Play in pick'em style contests for a shot to win $150K. Get the No House Advantage app and use our promo code GF2 to get a deposit match up to $25. Bet up to 5-player props, over and unders for individual matchups across all major sports leagues, including MMA, NASCAR, and PGA. Again, our promo code is GF2. Use it at nohouseadvantage.com or get the app in the App Store and get your first deposit match up to $25. No House Advantage. It's not how you play, but where you play.
It's time for running backs. Running backs.
All right, Tim, we'll start with you here at the top with your elite guy here, that guy that I like a lot as well.
So I was going to say, we all three had the same top guy, and I think for good reason. I think he's on his own tier this week, and that's, of course, Austin Eckler. If it wasn't for the fact that I didn't want all three of us to put their lock of the week as a running back, I would have had Austin Eckler. I think he's a lock in cash, but I will say that I think there's a decent chance he's not in the optimum tournament lineup. As I was just talking about a minute ago, this year, the optimum lineups have been more balanced. A lot of players in the 6 and 7K range. If you're paying up for Austin Eckler, it doesn't lead you to a lot of optimal ceiling builds as much as it builds an optimal median build. So I think he's a great play in cash, a good play in tournaments, but I don't know that he's going to end up being in the Millie Maker lineup this week.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff, man. I like him a lot. I've actually done a few builds for cash, and I've been trying to cram him in there at 8.8. I think he's definitely gonna have a big week.
Lock it in.
All right, staying in the elite tier, my lock of the week is Tim's boy, Mr. Aaron Jones, going at Detroit 7.4. Gerson kind of alluded to it earlier about the Packers wanting to run the ball. I think last week was the first time all season Jones has had 20 plus carries. I think the Packers want to run the ball. Obviously, not only they want to run the ball, but Jones is also great in the passing game as well. And Detroit's bad against both. They can't stop the pass or the run. So I think Jones is going to have a full workload this week at 7.4. I think he has similar ceiling to Eckler. And obviously with that offense, everything runs through him. So 7.4 is a steal for Aaron Jones, and he's my lock of the week.
Yeah, it's really been sad to watch A.J. Dillon's usage. But I mean, he's not hitting it. He doesn't seem like he has that same burst. So you got to go with Aaron Jones.
Agreed. All right, we'll move down into the mid-tier here.
Lock it in.
And Gerson's got his mid-tier guy as the lock of the week.
So I'm going to do a little toast for Travis Etienne, my lock of the week. Here we go. Tornado chug.
This is great for audio, by the way. It's just the silence.
I'm chugging beer, guys.
There he is.
For Travis Etienne, man. I've touted Travis Etienne since he was a rookie. I think I remember I ranked Travis Etienne ahead of Najee Harris for the rookie draft. in my rookie ranking. And well, it didn't pay off, obviously, because he got hurt, right? But now we're finally seeing the breakout. It happened the last 2 weeks. 24, and I wish this was on the main slate, on the main slate, because no, I'm glad it wasn't on the main slate because a lot of people probably this ownership would have been even higher, even though it's the highest on the week. It's at 27%. But he had 156 yards. He averaged 6.5 yards per carry, and he had a touchdown. The week before that, 114 yards, 8.1 yards per carry, and a touchdown. This guy can receive the ball too. He has a good pass catching ability. Facing the Las Vegas Raiders, and I hate that you guys been saying it. Sorry, G, it's the Raiders. Yeah, well, I know, dude. I know. Trust me. Every Monday I walk into work. There's one guy that always goes, "What happened to the Raiders, bro?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, go fuck yourself. You were a Chiefs fan, like what last year?"
That's only 2, Gerson. That's 2. You're cutting down. We only got 2 F-bombs tonight. You had one early and then that one right there. So you're getting better.
Yeah, I definitely got asked in a meeting today if the Packers were ever going to win a game. So I feel you on that.
But Travis Etienne, 6,300. It's just so underpriced, dude. He's projected almost at 19 points for me. So give me Etienne with the volume he has. His volume is insane right now. He is getting 80% of the snap, handling 88% of the Jaguars carries, and 11% target share. Guys, 11% target share, think about it as of like half of what Eckler getting. But Eckler, that target share is 22%. That's crazy, dude.
Yeah. Hey, where do you have his projected ownership at? Because I expect him to be the highest owned running back.
I have him at 27%.
Yeah, I was going to say around 30% was what I was expecting. Okay. Well, another mid-tier guy I really, really like this week is Ramondre Stevenson. He's taken over this job in New England. Last week we saw Damian Harris come back and get his touches, but it was still clearly the Ramondre show. And the great thing about it is they're actually using him a good bit in the passing game, which I think is where he gets so much of that value in PPR scoring. So we know Damian Harris is not out. He's sick. He's been out of practice this week. He probably is going to end up playing, but I don't think he's 100%, and I don't think it matters because this is Ramondre's job. He's 6,200. He's averaged over 20 points the last few weeks. I don't see how he doesn't hit that this week. A lot of people will be playing for going for Etienne for good reasons, so I'm going to pivot down to Ramondre.
Good stuff. I like it. So I'm going to go with last week's sort of darling, Mr. Dante Foreman, 6,000 versus Cincinnati. Chuba Hubbard has been officially ruled out, so it is his backfield once again this week. A bit of a tougher matchup versus Cincinnati, their 15th DVOA versus the run. But Foreman's kind of a poor man's Derrick Henry, the way he runs. I mean, he's just a beast. There's a couple, runs last week where I thought he was.
Don't offend Derrick Henry like that, dude.
I said a poor man's Derrick Henry. Did you see the run where he literally got stood up behind the line and then just drove the guy into the end zone? Just basically carried him into the end zone.
I mean, he worked, he obviously backed him up for a while, so I'm sure he learned a little bit of that style.
That's true. But yeah, 6,000 I think is still too cheap for him. It's not a great offense. They're not going to score a ton of points, but I do think if they get in close, it'll be Dante Foreman getting those carries. So at 6K, I still like him. So we got tons of mid-tier. So we'll go back through one more time. Gerson, give me another one of your mid-tier running backs.
I'm not gonna go with the Raiders guy because I don't want to talk about the Raiders. I'm gonna go with Kenneth the Menace Walker. I mean, he wasn't so menace last week, but I mean, he did break out a 20-yard touchdown, and that's what's crazy about him. I mean, I have so many stats on him; it's just insane. Like I'm like, what? But he's 8th in fantasy points per game at 20 points per game. Walker has posted the 3rd most explosive play at 11%. That's 8th best. He had the 8th best PFF rushing grade at 83%, 83.2. I mean, those are some godly numbers. And he had 21.7 touches, 109 yards, 1.3 touchdowns over his first 3 NFL starts. And guess what? He already played this team once. So the Arizona Cardinals. So I'm going to go right back to him. He's underpriced. Played the Arizona Cardinals. He got 97 yards and a touchdown, and he got 21 touches. So I'm going to have a lot of exposure to Kenneth Walker. I'm pretty sure he's going to be my highest exposed running back this week, and he's coming at 60% owned. If you think wow right now, Tim, if you saw what he was projected for me right now, I am at 21.3. So
wow.
I'm really high on him this week. So it's just a gut call. I think Kenneth Walker, I don't know, man. His price is just so underpriced. These mid-tier players are insane, man.
Yeah, they definitely are.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say about Josh Jacobs. Is I like Josh Jacobs this week, but I mean there are so many good plays in the mid-range, and then Aaron Jones has 100 more. I would argue that Jacksonville is not a great defense, but they're a better defense than any of those we talked about. So I like Josh Jacobs a lot this week, mainly as a pivot, but I don't know that how you can play him when you have so many, especially in cash, when you have so many better options.
Yeah. Speaking of Walker, did y'all see that video? It may have been actually 2 weeks ago at this point, where DK Metcalf was running a corner route and he was being man-to-man. It was actually a running play, and Metcalf runs out the corner route and then jumps like he's going to catch the pass, and the DB's defending the pass. In the meantime, Walker's right behind him scoring a touchdown. He had no clue. It was an awesome video. If you haven't seen it, I'll link you in the chat when we're done here. But
I'd love to check that out.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. All right, so let's just mention the last couple of guys that we had. You mentioned Josh Jacobs. You had him in your mid-tier. Joe Mixon, we also had in the mid-tier. And then we talked about Ramondre. So let's go ahead and move down into the value tier, Tim, and what you got in the value.
It's a hard week for value. Like we talked about, there are so many good plays in the mid-range. If you're playing a value, it's probably not optimal. But I'm going to go with a little off the board here. I'm going to go with Antonio Gibson. With J.D. McKissick being ruled out, he's finally getting the usage that we think he should get. Brian Robinson more in that Mark Ingram role, and he like a poor man's Alvin Kamara. So if he's going to be getting 7 targets a game and 10, 12 rushes a game, he's going to pay off at 5,500. With McKissick out, I think he gets more usage in the passing game. So I think he's the only running back under 6K that I think really has that GPP winning upside that I'm looking for.
Nice. I like it.
I did not know that J.D. McKissick was out. That's awesome.
Yes, sir.
So, Gerson, me and you have the same
That's
value.
why you tune in on the Friday night show, because we get the latest news.
Yeah. Gerson, what you got in your value tier? We have the same guy, so go ahead and talk about him.
Yeah, I keep on getting this guy confused with Dante Jackson. I don't know why I keep doing that, but his name is Deion Jackson. I mean, Deion Jackson plays for the Indianapolis Colts, in case anybody listening, you don't know who he is. But he's 5.2K. Is it Coach Rice or Reach? What is it? What's the name of the coach for the
Frank Reich. Yeah, right.
He said that this is the week for Deion Jackson to be the guy. Coach unsure if Zach Moss is ready to make a contribution. So in case you didn't know, Naheem Hines got traded. Jonathan Taylor is out. So yeah. Freaking Scott. Chat roll. All right, guys. In his first 2 games this season without Jonathan Taylor, where Hines was either limited or out, he averaged 12 point carries per game, 7 targets per game, and 20 fantasy points per game. That would rank him 12th and second best amongst this slate eligible. So Jackson's running back 31 price right now. So it's kind of crazy how cheap he is. And I don't think he's going to be highly owned at all because of all the other plays. But if it allows me to get Tyreek Hill and Austin Eckler in the same lineup, that's where I'm going to do, dude, to get Deion Jackson. I mean, what's the worst case scenario for him? He gets you 12 points. He gets you 10 points. Okay. But Austin Eckler and Tyreek just got you 60 points combined,
Yep.
That's why you have to save somewhere. I mean, we're talking about the plays. There's a little player that I might save a lot of money at. Wide receiver, basically.
Yeah, Deion Jackson, I like him a lot too. I actually wrote him up in my Fantasy Pros article, and I was talking about him a little bit in one of my DFS chats, and they were saying, well, the Patriots are a tough defense. They give up the second fewest fantasy points to running backs. But my counter to that was, one, the Patriots also give up the 9th most receiving yards to running backs. And in week 6, he had 10 catches. So I think this guy's definitely a receiving back. Not to mention, the only other active running back on the roster currently is Zach Moss, who's been there all of like 10 seconds. So I think Deion Jackson is going to get like 90% of the snaps because who else do they really have to even put back there? So just based on volume alone and the fact that they're probably going to be passing a lot to him, I think he's definitely an excellent play at 5.2.
Yep.
The only other guy I had in my value tier before we move to receivers is Tyler Algier, and I just heard that Cordell Patterson could be cleared before the start of this game. So obviously, if he's in, Algier is out. But Algier is getting a ton of volume. The Chargers defense against the run is not very good, 5.4. He's not very efficient, but he is getting the volume at 5.4. I don't love that call, but if you want to pivot off some of the other chalk guys that we mentioned, as long as Patterson's not playing, I do like Algier this week as well. All right,
man, it would just be crazy if Patterson ended up breaking the slate, right? Like while we're on this subject, he comes back on Sunday. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna see how he does with the knee," and then they give him 20 carries.
Yeah, exactly.
I love how you did, Jeff. You spoke, and Jeff like went to go press the button. He's like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, this time I didn't cut him off this time.
Thank you,
All
sir.
Right. Let's go ahead and hit it now.
And now, wide receivers.
All right, Gerson, kicking off the elite tier here. Who you got in your elite tier?
Yeah, I mean, my elite tier, it's Tyreek Hill. I don't know. The shock. I mean, not Tyreek Hill. DeAndre Hopkins. Sorry. So DeAndre Hopkins. I didn't see that, Tim. Sorry, buddy. Okay, great. Anyway, so DeAndre Hopkins to me. Sorry, I was reading the chat and then I kind of got distracted a little bit. DeAndre Hopkins has been the Cardinals' entire offense the last 2 weeks. That's the end, man. Like it before that. I mean, that offense on the wide receiver was so like you were just juggling them, you know. Greg Dortch. I remember when someone said light the torch for Dortch. Well, that torch been out for a while now. But DeAndre Hopkins. He has
the tribe has spoken on Greg Dortch. Okay.
Yes.
With more than 10 targets, he leads the NFL in targets per route at 0.36 points, while ranking second in targets at 38%. 38%. That's insane, dude. And second in first read share at 48%, only behind Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Damn, he even took my stat.
Okay.
All right. All right. Let's go. I'm gonna hit the drop down, then I'm gonna explain why Gerson.
Lock it in.
So, peek behind the curtain here. We put our locks of the week in a yellow highlighter on the sheet, and Tim has Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill written in there with a highlighter, and Gerson goes, I got Tyreek Hill in my elite tier. Oh, wait, Tim's got him as his lock of the week.
I sure do. It's Tyreek Hill, and this is one of the crazy things when I was doing my research this week is he's showing up as a value for me at 8,500. But his target volume has been insane, and as Gerson just stated, he's number one over the last few weeks in terms of first read at over 52%. So more than half the time when Tua is dropping back, he's looking up, finding Tyreek Hill, which, I mean, should be the way that it is. But, I mean, that's just insane. He said, and at 8,500, I think he's still too cheap, right? I think he should be over 9,000. Obviously, the matchup with the Bears is why he's priced down. But we've seen that they're not excellent. They gave up a pretty decent game to CeeDee Lamb, gave up a really good game to Justin Jefferson. And he's certainly, on that level, right? He's better than CeeDee Lamb. So, I mean, I don't see how he doesn't absolutely smash against Chicago. They just traded away arguably their two best defensive players. So, I mean, it just seems like they're ready to pack it in, and he's just going to score, 40 DraftKings points again, and you're going to either have Tyreek or not win. So just go ahead and lock in Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I like it. The only other guy that we have in our elite tier, Stephon Diggs. It is a tough matchup on paper. I think the Jets are 8th DVOA versus the pass. But this is Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. It doesn't matter who's back there. They can have the Bears 86 defense back there, and they're still probably going to tear them up. So at 8.4 versus the Jets. I like Diggs a lot this week, especially the stacking options. Very expensive with Josh Allen, but if you can make it work with some of those value guys we've mentioned, I do like I like that stack this week. All right, let's move down into the mid tier, and I'll go to you first this time, Tim.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown. We saw last week was his first real game back, but I think that he is a perfect matchup against the Green Bay Packers. He runs the majority of his routes out the slot, which means he'll be matched up against Rasul Douglas. He'll avoid Jair Alexander. And I think this is a game where you talked about it. It's going to be Goff at home. They're going to get behind, and they're going to have to throw the ball, probably 40 times. And his price has come down to 6,600. If you remember, when he scored 40 and broke the slate, he was at 6,500. So it feels like he's in a similar spot where he could score the 30 DraftKings points or whatever that you need to win a tournament at only 6,600.
Yeah, I like that call. I'm gonna go ahead and take my guy real quick, just because I have some stats on that I wanted to get to. But this guy last week goes on the road, right? I think he was 6,000 last week. He goes on the road. He puts up 6 receptions, 113 yards, and inexplicably, the DraftKings people decided to lower his price versus a worse defense at home, and that's Terry McLaurin at 5.9. He was 6,000 last week versus the Colts on the road. He's 5.9 versus the Vikings this week. We've seen Heineke just targets the hell out of him, and that, as a someone that's going to roster a receiver, that's what you want from your quarterback. Even when he's covered, he throws him the ball, and McLaurin's been coming through for him. So at 5.9 versus the Vikings, I like McLaurin a lot this week. Gerson, who you got in your mid tier?
So basically, I have Chris Godwin. Sorry, I really thought Terry McLaurin was a mid tier play for me, but
that's where we're at. We're in the mid tier. I didn't have any elite tier left. I said Stephon Diggs, and then I went down to the mid tier.
I have him as a value. That's what I meant. The mid tier, Chris Godwin. I can't tell you how many times I've touted Chris Godwin, but when I do tout him, he hits. So I'm happy. And this week is a Chris Godwin week. He's 6.2K. He's seen double-digit targets in every game except for one. He's earning an average of 10 and 10.4 targets in that in a 5-game sample. The Bucs are still one of the heaviest passing offense in the league. They rank 4th in passes attempt. Tom Brady, I think maybe this is just me being a Tom Brady big fan. Everybody knows, if you know me off the stream, I'm a big Tom Brady fan. I love great players like Tom Brady, LeBron James, Jeff Lambert, But Tom Brady spent time with his family. Maybe he'll get motivated again, when Halloween trick-or-treating. Maybe he'll realize, dude, this is not the end. Let's go. Let's fucking go, I will pay for that swear word. I will donate. But Tom Brady, I think he's going to, from here on, he's going to be Tom Brady. And I'm going to have a lot of Chris Godwin. I don't know how much because he is 6.2K. But if Tom Brady's going to pass the ball, I think he's passed it now over 40 times, 5 games in a row now?
Yeah, he's been passing a ton.
But he's one of the heaviest passing offense, obviously. But I think I'm shocked. I'm shocked at the ownership of Godwin, too, because I didn't expect it to be this low. He's only at 12%. I thought he was going to be 20 to 21.
Yeah.
But at 13%, 12% against the Los Angeles Rams. Dude, what's his name? Ramsey. Ramsey's not going to be on him.
Nope.
He's going to be on Mike Evans. And even if Godwin was on, even if Ramsey was on Godwin, I'll take that because I don't think Ramsey is a great cornerback. He can cover you, but the thing is, he's like Dig. He'll make plays, playmaker. But give Chris Godwin 6.2K, too cheap. I'm going to have a lot of exposure to him, and I think it's a good pivot from the other guys that were in those mid tiers.
Yeah, and just to pull back the curtain a little bit, Chris Godwin was going to be Jeff's lock of the week before he moved it to Aaron Jones. So just to let you know, we are all in on Chris Godwin as a show.
Yep, I was just going to say the same thing. That pre-show, we were trying to decide who should our locks of the week be, and I was going to go Chris Godwin, so you can go Eckler, but last minute we decided to flip that a little bit. So at 6.2, I love Godwin this week. We got tons of mid tiers, so let's go back to you, Tim. Give us another one of your mid tiers.
Yeah, we haven't talked about DJ Moore. DJ Moore, since Christian McCaffrey has been gone, has just gotten an absolutely insane target share with PJ Walker, and that's not going to stop this week against Cincinnati. Cincinnati can be beat with the pass a little bit. And I think, it's just really, this is a volume play, like more than anything. At 5,800 for the volume he's going to see, he's just too cheap, in my opinion. And we know that they just lost Chidobe Awuzie, which was their best corner. So he's mostly going to be matched up against like Eli Apple, which we know is just burnt. I almost said burnt fucking toast. So, it is what it is, right? There's nobody on the Cincinnati defense that can match up with him at this point. Plus the volume, 5,800. He's just a great play.
Yeah, one thing I want to talk about too is that pass last week. I know the catch was great, but that PJ Walker pass was very Mahomes-esque. I mean, that was like 60 yards in the air on the spot over 2 DBs. It was just beautiful. So yeah, DJ Moore definitely at 5.8 is one of my favorite plays as well. Gerson, give us one more of your mid tiers before we get down to the values.
You both took a lot of my mid tiers, but let's just go with Josh Palmer. Josh Palmer is basically the free square this week, like value. He's gonna get peppered with so much target. No Mike Williams, no Keenan Allen, and it's just, to me, they're gonna pass the ball against the Atlanta Falcons. Like I said early on, a lot of people are touting this game. I think they're touting it more because of the value that's in this game. You play Austin Eckler, he's going to get all the volume, and you play Josh Palmer. I mean, he is getting a pretty good amount of DraftKings, good amount of points when they're out. I just had it. But the matchup is great. They allow the second highest yards per average against wide receivers, and I'm going to get probably close to like 30 to 40% Josh Palmer for value.
Yeah.
But I do love the DJ Moore and Terry McLaurin. I'm going to try to probably create a group with those 3 guys and try to rotate them out, man. Those are such good value. I love the Terry McLaurin call. It was ridiculous, like what you said, Jeff. They lowered his price.
Yeah.
I
don't get it. So yeah, I mentioned a couple guys that were in the mid tier that we didn't talk about. T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, and then Gabe Davis. Tim had Gabe Davis on there as well at 6,900. I had Palmer in my value tier. Tim, you have one guy in your value tier that we don't, neither me nor Gerson has.
Yeah, Palmer's the clear value play this week, like Gerson said. His when Keenan Allen has been out, and now Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are both out, he saw 12 targets in his last game against Denver. Just insane volume for somebody at 5,100. So again, we talked about it. Value is very hard to come by this week. And if you're going to pay up for your Austin Ecklers and your Tyreek Hills, you got to find value somewhere. And I'm going to go all the way down to 4,000 and play Khalif Raymond. He is a former sit call. You guys know I love touting former sit calls, who's actually gotten pretty decent volume the last few weeks for the Detroit Lions. And then now TJ Hawkinson is gone. And so he's going to get even more volume. But if you look at this last week, 3 catches, 76 yards. Before that, 5 for 75. He's had 7 targets, 6 targets, 5 targets. It's not like he's getting no targets, and he's only 4K. So I think it's going to be really hard.
Josh Reynolds was also out.
Doubtful, yeah. Is he out? I know he's doubtful, yeah. So, it's a situation where he's looking at a decent, projected target volume at 4,000 in a game like we've already talked about where they're expected to be from behind. So the majority of the volume will go to Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? But Swifty's probably not going to play either. And if he does play, he's going to be very limited. So I think that Raymond could easily see 7, 8, 9 targets at 4K. That's just too cheap.
Yeah, agreed. Go ahead, Gerson. What are you going to say?
All right, this is going to sound crazy. It's random as fuck, but we're on value. All right, he just got traded. He's going to a good game environment. Chase Claypool at 4,800.
Yeah.
That could be like a great cheap, because Chase Claypool just had a passing touchdown. Yeah. It could be like, hey, dude, like you can do this, you can do that. Hell, Justin Fields just throw the ball like 80 yards. Let's see if he can catch it. I think. Yeah,
welcome to the team touchdown, right?
Yeah.
Put a little narrative behind it.
I'm just throwing some crazy stuff out there, GPP play only though.
Well, I'll tell you, if you want to get different in your Tua Tyreek stacks, man, it would be bringing it back with Chase Claypool.
Wait. The other thing is, I don't even know that. I haven't even looked. But does DraftKings have that alert at the top that says, if this player is in your roster, he's not going to get points? Have they?
No, they changed it over. He will earn points.
Yep.
Yeah, same thing with Hopkinson, and pretty much all the traded players this week are eligible to accrue points.
Yep.
I guess we probably should have mentioned that at the top of the show, right?
Yeah. So I have one value that's a pivot off of Palmer, and that's DeAndre Carter at 4.3. Obviously, in the same game. Obviously, we've seen some rapport with Herbert and him. I think it was like week 2 or week 3 when we all thought Palmer would be the guy, and then it ended up being Carter. So you could save $7,000, $8,000 actually off of Palmer and get Carter in there if you want it at 4.3. Still a great matchup.
800.
Yeah, 800 less. Yeah, I figured he was in that range somewhere. So yeah, that's my other value. And then Gerson also has Christian Kirk there, but we're going to go ahead and move into the defenses now.
Defense.
All right, Tim, go ahead and kick us off here with the defenses.
Yeah, Gerson talked about it earlier. The chalk defense this week is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They get a matchup against the Los Angeles Rams, who have been just terrible. We've targeted them every single week for defense because they give up so many sacks, right? That offensive line has just completely fallen apart. I think they're a $4,000 defense that's priced at $3K this week. The Buccaneers know they have to bounce back. I mean, the Atlanta Falcons are leading that division right now, so it's clearly wide open. I think this is where they get back on track, and that starts with the defense at $3K. If you can't afford the $3K, just as Jeff, we're going to go with your team here, Seattle Seahawks. We talked about this. Depending on what you're looking at, over the last month, they have been the #1 DVOA team in the league. So we talked at the top of the show that we think this could be a shootout, but if you want to get away from that, play the Seattle defense.
Yeah, I actually got into a debate in one of my DFS chats with a guy I respect, and he was, saying don't play Seattle. But so they have the league's highest forced fumbles. They have the league's highest fumble recoveries. Over the last, I think, 3 weeks, they have, 14 sacks. A lot of stats that you don't think of when you think of Seattle as a bad defense. I think they give up a ton of points, ton of yards, but they get turnovers and they get sacks, which is what you really want with your defense. I think even a week that they gave up 45 points, I believe it was to Detroit, they still had 7 points, which, at their value, it's at 2.5 would still get you a 2-time value. So I like Seattle this week at 2.5 as well. And Kyler Murray over the last 3 weeks has been the most sacked quarterback. So that also goes into play with the Seattle getting sacks, as Kyler Murray's holding the ball and trying to do too much and taking sacks. Gerson, you got a defense you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I love the Buck call for sure. I think I'm gonna. I feel like this is a thing. Play whoever's playing Zach Wilson. I say this every week, and it worked out. I mean, last week, every week it works out, man. Like Zach Wilson's just horrible, man. I mean, the Bills defense might be overpriced though at 4,300. But I think it's a defense. Like if you can find those cheaper quarterbacks, like I don't know, Mariota, those guys, you can pay up for defense. Go get Bill defense because I think this defense is probably the only defense in the week that had a 20-point upside. They can get a couple. Yeah. I believe Tre'Davious White is back. If I'm correct.
Yeah, he's gonna be back for this game. Yep.
So I mean, they have a chance. I mean. I can't believe they keep rolling out Zach Wilson, man.
Tim, you got one more defense that I also like there too, Carolina. Talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, Carolina is like a last resort, right? Like if you get to a point where you have a lineup and you like every single other spot and you just can't afford the extra 200 for Seattle, I think Carolina could get you positive points, right? Like I think there's a good chance if you play the Jets at 2K, they could get you negative points this week. So I never advocate for a defense that could get you negative points, but I think Carolina for only 300 more could get you 6 or 7 points, and that 200 you save from Seattle to move to another player could end up making the rest of your lineup better. So I always say if you come down, you love every other spot. Defense is so highly variant. Pivot at defense, save a couple hundred, make sure every other spot fits.
Yep, I like it. All right, let's get to our stacks.
Going4two.com's weekly stack report.
All right, Tim, I'll go to you first. Give us your stack of the week.
Yeah, I kind of gave it away at the top of the show. I'm going to go with the Yeti Express this week and tail on Mr. Kyler Murray. I've told y'all before, I'm not usually a Kyler fan, but this is when one of those kind of puzzle pieces fit together. We talked about Seattle's defense has been better, but this sets up as such a good spot for Kyler. Hopkins is just playing out of his mind. We talked about Ertz is a great play because of defense. And I'm going to go with Gerson's guy, Kenneth Walker, a.k.a. Kenneth the Minute, coming back on the other side as my bring back.
I like it. Gerson, what you got for your stack?
I just typed it in. Calm down. I mean, I popped up there, didn't I? Hold on. Let me type that.
Tyreek as your quarterback? That's interesting.
Yeah, that would be a call.
That'd be an expensive stack. It's Tua, Waddle, Tyreek, and Mooney. I honestly thought about Claypool, but I was like, that's just getting too cute because they're almost the same price, basically. But one of them really no offense longer. I mean, I talked about this team the whole slate. I mean, I said I'm going to be on two teams, basically. It's going to be the Bills and the Dolphins. And I think this stack, that's the way it's going to get cheap with Mooney. He's only 4,800. So give me that stack. And again, I cannot say this enough. Watch the weather, because if it's too windy, I'm going to be off that game.
Yeah. Good call. I had a crazy stat that I gave on Wednesday. Do y'all know who the 7th leading rusher in the NFL is right now? It's Khalil Herbert. Would you have ever guessed that in a million years? I mean, Khalil Herbert's like the backup running back on his own team, but yet he's the 7th rusher in the NFL right now. Isn't
Daniel Jones like a top 8 rusher?
Is what?
Daniel Jones, isn't he like a top 10, top 8 rusher?
He is. He's up there as well. He got more rushing yards than Najee Harris and more rushing touchdowns too, for that matter. It's kind of crazy. All right, so my stack this week is Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, and then you got to have Palmer in there for the cheap ability there to fit those two guys in, and then bringing it back with Pitts, as Gerson kind of mentioned earlier with the ex-girlfriend metaphor. Just keep going back to her. It's toxic, but we just keep going back. So let's hope we get the good one this time. So Kyle Pitts is my bring back. All right.
This is great.
All right, let's close it out.
And now, the sick call of the week.
All right, Gerson, we'll go to you first here, because your sick call is sort of the guy that you would play if my cheap tight end doesn't play. He's questionable at the moment. So talk about your guy.
I can almost assure you that, like, probably only 10% of our audience know who this guy is. And that's me, you, and Tim probably. Only James Mitchell, man. So Brock Wright was supposed to be the guy to take over the tight end position for TJ Hawkinson trade. No. They went and said basically that they're going to get a good look at James Mitchell with TJ Hawkinson gone. And the reason why, well, they drafted him as a 5th rounder. This guy was an athlete, man. He was actually converted into a tight end. He was like more of a, what do you call it? They call it, when they recruit you, it's like all-around athlete, like ATH or something like that. I don't know what they call it. I just remember seeing it in like NCAA video games. Dude, when he didn't
OW, offensive.
Yeah, I was gonna say offensive weapon. Yeah, like that's exactly.
And shout out to NCAA for bringing back that game, dude. I'm so fucking pumped, dude. I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna tell my work I need 2 days off. I'm out, peace, you know. But anyway, yeah, this guy James Mitchell, 2,500. He's cheap. Hey guys, I'm not telling you he's gonna get you 20 points. I'm not telling you he's gonna get you 15 points. I'm not telling you he's gonna get you 10 points, but he might get you 8 points. You know, this game, if it goes the way Tim wants it to go Pack, go, then maybe he'll get you those 8 points. But dude, 2,500, dude, like on a slate like this, where tight end is so ugly, why not just punt it? Why not?
Yep.
I like it. All right, Tim, what you got for your sick call?
So I told you in the pre-show that every week, we're filling out our sheet, and I'm going into my values last week, and I put Tanner Hudson as a value, and I'm like, man, he should have been my sick call. He ended up hitting value. This week, I had this guy listed as a value, and I'm like, you know what? He's going to be my sick call this week. And that's Damiere Byrd for the Atlanta Falcons.
Right.
This is kind of one of those puzzle pieces fits together kind of things. Atlanta runs the ball basically more than any other team in the league other than Chicago, right? But what they do is they set up play action at least a couple times for him every single game. And the last 2 games in a row, he's had a deep touchdown. Who gives up a ton of deep touchdowns? The Los Angeles Chargers. So we expect them to be playing from behind in this game. And like I said, last 2 weeks, he's had a 47-yard touchdown, a 75-yard touchdown. If you're looking for a low-owned bring back in your Herbert stacks to afford Austin Eckler, afford Tyreek Hill, Damiere Byrd, 3,500. I think he's going to hit again this week.
I like it. And he's one of those players that he can literally hit it on one play. You know, if he hits that 50, 60-yard touchdown, that's
absolutely, it's done. And after that, it's just gravy.
Yep, exactly. All right, so I'm sticking with receivers as well. I'm going with a guy that sort of showed up a little bit last week, and I saw a lot of this game, and they had a narrative that P.J. Walker, his quarterback, had talked about how well he'd been doing in practice, and he wanted to get him involved in the game. He did just that. He gave him 9 targets. That's Terrace Marshall Jr. He had 9 targets, 4 catches. He actually came really, really close to catching a touchdown last week, which would have really put his value up there. But I do think that P.J. Walker and him have a connection, and he keeps targeting him at 3.9. I do think that Terrace Marshall Jr. got a chance to do something special this week, so he is my sick call of the week at 3.9. Person, you got a big smile on your face. What are you going to say?
For a second, I thought you said me and Terrace Marshall have a connection. I'm like, wow, dude.
I called him up. I was like, yo, what are you doing this week? All right, fellas, that wraps up the show. Let's go around the room. Give us your Twitter handle and obviously plug the Facebook page. We'll go to you first, Gerson.
Yeah, you can find me at the DFS. Actually, you can find more Tim stuff. His stuff is freaking hot fire, dude. Like I told you guys before, but I legit spend my half-hour lunch usually on Wednesday or Thursday just reading that whole thing, digesting it. It's like some incredible knowledge, and it's free. Like, it's free. The DFS Roundtable. You can find me usually on the Sunday show, but this Sunday I will not be there. I'm actually taking the week off on the Sunday show. I don't know if they're going to replace me or not. I don't know. Jeff is the one in charge. So, but I will put all my plays on Twitter. So I'm not very active on Twitter, but I will be active this Sunday for you guys. But
make sure to tag me, and then I'll make sure to retweet it.
Sounds good, man. But yeah, you can find me there.
All right, Tim, what you got?
Yeah, so as Gerson mentioned, you got to get in the DFS Roundtable group on Facebook. That's where I do my weekly thread. I put all of my graphs and info that gets me ready for the show in the week. And then, of course, you can find me on Twitter at KetoDFS.
Good stuff. As always, guys, you can find me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. And to answer Gerson's question, unfortunately, we will not be replacing Gerson in the DFS segment this week. We couldn't find anybody that knows DFS well enough to take over that segment. But some exciting news is Gladys, who used to host the show for the past 2 years, is coming back to host the next 2 weeks. So she will be hosting this week. Jamie and Ben will also be there. We might have a special guest showing up as well.
Must listen if Gladys is back.
Definitely. All right, fellas. Good luck this weekend. And for Tim, for Gerson, I'm Jeff, and we will see y'all next week.
Go, Pack, go!